everybody, and welcome to another episode of Healthy AF. This is the third in a three-part series on July's theme, freedom from limiting beliefs. Uh, if you haven't listened to the first and second, I would highly recommend you go back because this is a process, and you don't just get to the core of the onion by like slicing through the middle. I mean, you do, but that's typically not how life works. And it doesn't work in the onion metaphor. It doesn't work with Shrek. It doesn't work with anything. So you really need to peel the layers. And there are some layers in the first episode and the second episode on limiting beliefs that you might want to have before you hit the core here in episode 3. So what we've been talking about are limiting beliefs, and how do you know you have them? You have them. Okay, just like you've got them. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they're in charge of in your life, but I promise you have them, and they are in charge. So when to go looking for a limiting belief? When you are not doing what you say you're going to do. When you are not taking any actions that would support something that you are deeply committed to. Is it getting that new job and you're not sending out a resume? Is it losing that weight, but you're stopping at the McDonald's every day? Like, what is it? Is it getting in shape, but then you're not going to the gym? Like, there's spots everywhere. They can be big, big spots. I keep saying that I'm going to get off caffeine. I'm not off caffeine. Like, what's the holdup, Chang? So when you have one of those moments that you're like, I am not doing anything to get to this specific goal, desire, want, probably a limiting belief hanging around in there. So we established in our first session, what are they? Can you relate? Where are they? And then we gave you a whole week to stew on that. Okay, just to look around in your life for where are these limiting beliefs? Is it holding me up? Could I identify any from the past? And then we dropped episode 2. And that was all about how do you identify that you have one? You look at your actions. And after you look at what you're actually doing or not doing, you look at your thoughts and your emotions. And that's going to lead you to finding that limiting belief. So it's likely after you come out of looking at your thoughts, emotions, and actions, what you are doing and are not doing, that you're going to have a hazy sense of what might be running your show. Okay. We also determined that if a limiting belief or a hidden commitment, you can call it either one, is actually in charge, if that is the case, then you're going to need to give yourself some grace because you've likely been doing some weird stuff. Okay. Like saying you want a healthy marriage, but actually not talking to your partner. Doesn't make any sense, does it? If you look at it, you're like, wow, that does not make any sense at all. Why in goodness name would you think that you could have a healthy marriage when you won't even talk to your partner when you're walking through the hall, or you won't sit down and address the issue? Well, there's a limiting belief there. A lot of times it's fear. And to dig down and really get the idea of what that is that's running your show, once you identify that, not talking to your partner makes sense because you're so afraid that you're going to say something that's going to set them off again, right? Then it would make sense to shut up and just take the marriage you've got. At least you have it. You see how that all of a sudden puts a new light on how your behaviors actually do line up with your hidden commitments? They do. It's crazy stuff. All right. So now we're in podcast 3. We've given ourselves grace. We have looked at like our crazy town behaviors that actually make a lot of sense when we match them up with our hidden commitments. We have given ourselves grace, identifying what we are not doing for that commitment we keep talking about that is super important to ourselves, and we're not doing it. We're so disappointed, maybe a little defeated, but no, we're going to throw the grace on top of that. So when we last met, I was talking about how much I do not want to call some people who live in Raleigh. I've got a speaking engagement coming up in Raleigh. I know the best way to share with people that I'm actually coming and this is what we're going to be talking about is to call them. And I do not want to do that. And I keep saying I'm going to do it. And I keep telling people, I keep doing it, like making the easy calls, making the easy invitation to people I talk to on the daily who live in Raleigh, but I won't make the harder calls. And we identified by looking at my actions, my thoughts, and my emotions that I'm really kind of afraid. I'm kind of afraid that I'm going to call somebody that I grew up with, that I love and adore, but I haven't talked to in a couple years, and invite them to come. And they're going to think, gosh, that was brazen of her. Don't be up in my inviting me to come to something you hadn't even seen me in 3 years. I'm afraid they'll think I'm rude. I'm afraid they'll come and be like, I don't know why I came. What does she know about self care? And that's where we left it. So, what do I do when I start getting a flavor of, huh, I've got some things here that I may be afraid of, and I've got some things here that may or may not be true? What then? Well, we test them. We test them. We put it to the acid test. We ask, is it true? Is it true? And I don't mean like could be, possibly is. I mean 100% of the time true. Is it true, Amy Chang, I'm looking at you, that when you call these people, they are going to be offended and think that you're a rude, selfish person? No. No, I don't know what they'll think. I really have no idea. I can't see into the future. I can make stuff up, but I really don't know if that's true or not. Okay. What about this whole, why would you be going to have a whole, workshop day on self-care? Who do you think you are? What do you have to add about self-care? Well, is it true that I don't know anything about self-care? Psh, that is so false. Like I can't even, it's my mother used to say, like, I don't even want to dignify that with an answer. And that's how I feel about that. Like, I don't even want to, like, are you kidding me? Amy Chang, come on. You have been living it and learning it and growing it and coaching it. That's some poopy stink right there. And then I crisp that up. And this is an important step. So I've looked to see, like, are these two main beliefs true? That people are going to think that I'm rude and selfish and self-serving if I call and invite them to a talk. And that I really don't know enough about self-care to be talking on it anyway. I've established that neither of those two things are 100% true. So now, and I mentioned in podcast 2, that working this with a coach or a person who will take your feet from like the twinkle toes, maybe close to the fire and getting a little hot, to, I mean, like in the fire up to the calf, is important. If I really put my feet right up in that fire, then I say to myself, Hey, it's okay. It's You're committed that you don't know enough about self-care to share and be a benefit to others. And you're committed to your fear that someone will maybe think you're rude. And just sit with that. Hmm. That's what's running my show. That's what I'm committed to. Is being afraid that somebody might think I'm rude. And an untrue belief that I don't have enough knowledge and experience to share and make an impact on other people's lives. Yeah, that's a tough one. Lots of quiet on this podcast. So you get there. Can you accept it? Can you accept that that's what you're committed to? Can you accept that actually what you're committed to is staying heavy so that you don't have to go out on the singles dating? Can you accept that what you're committed to is swallowing up any concerns you have just so that you can stay in a marriage that isn't fulfilling? Mm, tough ones. Tough ones. I know that when I do this work with myself, there's a good chance I'm going to like squirm out when it gets painful. Right? Stuff starts to get uncomfortable. And all of a sudden, that laundry has to be folded like right now. If you're into this work it with somebody else, somebody who has some training, somebody who loves you unconditionally, someone who doesn't have a dog in the fight, right? And like heapfuls of grace. Took me a long time to get to a spot where I could look at my limiting beliefs and not be filled with shame, not be filled with, well, I should have done this, I should have done that. What's wrong with me? I don't know why everybody else can do these things, but I'm not pulling triggers. I'm just not good enough. Like all of it, so heavy. When I first started looking at my commitments, my hidden commitments, and I wasn't this graceful with myself. It's been a long time for me to learn that new skill. I didn't have the skill of being graceful with me and allowing it to look exactly the way it looks. I certainly didn't have the skill of allowing it to look exactly the way it looks and podcasting about it for Pete's sake. So when you start, it's okay to need a little help. And there are people who can help you work through this process. There's a great book called Immunity to Change. I'll put the link in the show notes. And Brene Brown did a podcast on it. So it's got to be true, where she went through a process using immunity change, which this is similar to. Not quite the same, but similar to. To do this, you got to have some grace for yourself. I can't say that enough. There's no freedom from limiting beliefs if You don't have freedom from your armor that keeps you protected. It takes vulnerability to look with honesty, to really be willing to honestly look. So you've gotten this aha of, holy crap, I'm more committed to a fear that somebody's going to think I'm rude, or a belief that is clearly untrue, that like maybe I don't know what I'm talking about when it comes to self-care, which is like, really? So you just had that aha moment. How do you let it go? Sometimes it's enough for me just to see it. Most times, especially if it's tender, I need a little self-care around it. Do I need a hug? I'm not kidding. I can either ask one of the kids or random people. I've been known to, like, hey, I need a hug. I can hug me. Sometimes I give myself a little arm rub and a little pat. Sometimes I say, hey, you know what? Limiting belief, I'm really grateful for you. Because at one point, that limiting belief kept little Amy safe. And I know that that's what it's trying to do now. So I can just say, hey, like, thanks so much for offering the crazy town. I don't need that anymore. Look to see what supports you need to put in place. It might be a conversation with a friend. It might be a new schedule. It might, it might be anything from the logistics, that's the very rote logistics, to like a deep emotional love. How can you take care of your little self that's scared? For me, I'm going to remind my little self that actually I am so loved. And I have such a blessed, charmed life. And some of that is the people that I can call and say, hey, it's Amy. And they are delighted to hear from me. And I have something that I can offer that might serve them in an area of their life that they are struggling in. Thank you so much for going through this with me. I appreciate it. It's cleared up a lot of murkiness in my actions for myself. I hope you've gotten something for yourself. If you think there's value in this, you can always reach out to me. You can find me. It's in the show notes. Give yourself mountains and mountains and dump truck fulls of grace today. Like, subscribe, share, and I will see y'all on the next episode of Healthy AF.